This guy built a 100 crore rupee startup in an industry that no one talked about, the laundry industry. He invited us out to Faridabad to show us exactly how it works and how anyone can start a startup to solve a simple problem.
In your daily course of life, if you keep your eyes and ears open, you will realize that there is certain problem that is begging to be solved or that has only been partially solved.
Arunabh has already built multiple startups, but this was by no means a smooth ride.
Within 15 to 20 days of opening our first outlet, the entire shop was gutted to ashes.
We're gonna dive deep into his business and also learn about his framework for how you can find an idea worth pursuing.
But I don't think it's rocket science. So I think as an entrepreneur or as a businessman, the most important asset or skill set that you need to have is.
In this video, he reveals everything. How he'd start again from scratch, how he found his first few customers, and how anyone can start a startup after finding a simple problem in college. I'm Sanskar Goyal, and you're watching The Game Plan. Awesome, Arunabh. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Pleasure is all mine.
Before we get started, can you give the audience a short intro about yourself, like who you were before UClean?
Hi guys, so my name is Arunabh and I'm the founder and CEO of UClean. Prior to UClean, in fact UClean is my second venture. Prior to this, I had started my first company in 2010, which I exited in 2015. Worked for a year with Crore Hotels as their North India business head. Originally, I'm from Bihar, born and brought up in Jamshedpur, did all my schooling there. Went to IIT Bombay for my engineering, did my majors in material science and metallurgy. Worked for a couple of years before embarking on my first startup journey.
Were you always business minded?
No, I would say I was not always business minded. I went to IIT predominantly because I knew that IIT was a guaranteed way to get a job.
Right.
And coming from Jamshedpur, we were born in, or we lived in that part of Jamshedpur, which was not part of the Tata Steel. So our biggest dream, or as kids growing up, was to crack a job in Tata Steel.
Okay.
So the moment I got metallurgy and material science in IIT Bombay, I was on cloud 9 because I now knew that I have a pathway to get into Tata Steel.
Right. So where are we right now, and what's this facility used for?
So this is our head office.
Right.
We are currently in Surajkund area of Faridabad, where we are headquartered. And this is predominantly an administrative office.
Right.
So a lot of administrative functions, finance functions, HR and sales, they happen out of the office.
Right.
But the real blood and sweat that is being invested, it's happening on the ground, where our operations team is distributed across India.
Want to know how Arunabh rebuilt his business? Stay tuned, coming up. So after coming from IIT, how did this idea of laundry business come to you?
So it was actually a combination of two different things. So like I said, my first startup was a company that I started in 2010.
Right.
And that was a startup that was into cross-border consultancy. So what we used to do was we used to help international brands enter into India, primarily through the franchising route. And we also helped a lot of Indian brands expand internationally.
Okay.
So during that time, I used to travel extensively to Southeast Asia and Manila, or rather Philippines, Indonesia and Malaysia were our target markets.
Right.
In 2010, if you were someone who went to Jakarta or to Kuala Lumpur, you would realize that the dhobi system was very similar to India. So all they had were the local dhobis who came on a bicycle and then they took your clothes and then washed them by the side of the river.
Right.
But 2010, suddenly there was a transformation. Laundromats started coming in, laundry brands started coming in, and in the next 5-6 years, there was literally an explosion of laundromats in Southeast Asia. So that thought remained at the back of my head. I exited this company in 2015.
Right.
For the next 1.5 years, I was working with Crore Hotels, heading their North India business.
Correct.
And Crore Hotels majorly works with budget hoteliers. So we work with them on upgrading them, improving their sales and marketing.
Right.
While working at Crore, I realized that the biggest pain point that budget hotels have is laundry. You go into a 3-star hotel or a 2-star hotel, either the bed sheets are dirty, the towel covers are dirty, the pillow covers are dirty, and that becomes the biggest cause of escalation.
Right.
So now I could see that India was also going through a very similar phase like Southeast Asia about 10 years back, where Indian customers were absolutely unhappy with the quality and consistency of laundry and were forced to outsource it because they had no other options. So I think I almost took it as a divine signal that I had seen this in Southeast Asia, I was seeing this in India, and high time somebody did something about it, and that's when I decided to take the leap of faith.
Correct. So for somebody right now in college, how can they think of starting up? How can they find problems? How can they build solutions for that?
I would call myself an accidental entrepreneur and not an intentional entrepreneur. And I still believe that you will accidentally bump into a problem. So while researching might help you, and especially your generation who are technically and digitally very savvy, you can always find out ways to figure out problems. But I am still someone who is old school, and I believe that you will, in your daily course of life, if you keep your eyes and ears open, you will realize that there is certain problem that is begging to be solved, or that has only been partially solved, so you can improvise and you can create a new business. So my only suggestion would be to absolutely keep your eyes, ears and senses open, and I'm very sure you'll be able to sense an opportunity.
Correct. Also, before starting a startup, do you feel people should have the industry experience?
No, so I don't think so. When I started my first startup, I had some bit of background about how India market entry works, but I don't think it's rocket science. So if you have your heart, your mind and your soul into it, I'm sure you can learn it very quickly, and especially today when so much information overload is available on Google, Instagram and Facebook. If you are someone who's willing to learn, I think there is nothing holding you from learning it.
Right. Do you have an idea but lack the expertise? Stay tuned, we'll tell you something more. So at what point you thought that UClean is something you can pursue it for a longer period?
So when we started UClean, and we opened our first outlet in Vasant Kunj area of Delhi, and within 15 to 20 days of opening our first outlet, the entire shop was gutted to ashes because there was a fire inside the shop because of my stupidity. And by the time we realized, by the time we went there to douse the fire, it had already gutted the shop to ashes. For me, it almost meant like the end of UClean dream, but I decided to give it a shot. I wrote a LinkedIn reach out to the CEO of Alliance Laundry Systems, which is the biggest company in the world when it comes to commercial laundry equipment. I only had 1% hope that he would respond, but he did respond. He responded within 24 hours. We set up a call, and then he talked about how bullish they are about the Indian market, and they wanted to penetrate the Indian market, and they were looking for young entrepreneurs like me who would help them scale the business in India. And that's when I got convinced that this is one opportunity that I should very seriously and dedicatedly pursue.
For people watching, what's the best advice you have gotten so far being a business person?
So I think as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, the most important asset or skill set that you need to have is you have to be absolutely shameless. So whether it's in terms of reaching out to new customers, reaching out to potential partners, or even reaching out to take favors from people that you know, people that you do not know, you have to be shameless. And at various points in time, regardless of how big or how small your startup is, at various points in time, you will have to ask people for favors, and that is where how shameless you are will play a big role.
But where do you draw the line between being shameless and being actually disturbing someone?
So I think I leave it to the other person. So I don't mind being shameless. If he doesn't want to respond, he will not respond. If he wants to send back an acidic message asking me to never contact him again, I will accept that, I'll respect that, I'll not contact him again. But honestly speaking, I'll leave him to draw the line.
So what is the customer journey at UClean? Let's say मेरे को UClean use करना है, so what's the whole process?
So it depends on whether you're a customer that prefers a pickup and drop, or whether you're a customer that wants to physically visit the store. So अगर आप pick up and drop prefer करते हो, तो there are multiple channels to reach out to UClean. You can either download the UClean application, or you can use the UClean website, या फिर UClean को आप WhatsApp पे हाई भेज के पूरा प्रोसेस ऑटोमेट कर सकते हैं. Yeah, we also have a centralized WhatsApp number or call center number. You can call up that number and you will speak to the customer representative who will help you place the order. या फिर आप directly store को call कर सकते हैं. So as soon as you place the order, you have the option of giving a pickup time and a drop time. So जो भी आपने pickup time choose किया उसके 48 hours के बाद के ही आप drop times दे सकते हो. As soon as you place the order at your requested time, जो nearest store होगा. So our algorithm is very similar to what say ओला यूजर्स और उबर यूजर्स, जहां पर आपके घर का लैटिट्यूड लॉन्जिट्यूड और नियरेस्ट स्टोर के लैटिट्यूड लॉन्जिट्यूड को मैप किया जाएगा, और जो भी आपके घर से नियरेस्ट स्टोर होगा ऑटोमेटिकली लीड उसको असाइन हो जाएगी। फिर रिक्वेस्टेड टाइम पे डिलीवरी बॉय आपके घर पे आएगा, आपके गंदे कपड़े आपके सामने वे करके दिखाएगा, बिकॉज आवर बिजनेस इज लॉन्ड्री बाय द किलो। तो हम आपके कपड़ों को थोक में धोते हैं, वेट करते हैं, वेट के हिसाब से हम आपको चार्ज करते हैं। तो डिलीवरी बॉय विल कम टू योर प्लेस विद अ वेइंग स्केल, he will weigh the clothes in front of you, he will give you the challan, he will take the clothes to the store, जहां पर वो वॉश होंगे, ड्राई होंगे, आयरन होंगे, यू क्लीन ब्रांडेड पैकेजिंग में पैक होके वापस 2 दिन बाद आपके घर पे डिलीवर कर दिए जाएंगे, at which point in time you are required to make the payments.
Okay. A lot of people don't start up because of fear of failure. So what's your advice?
If you have fear of failure, then don't start up. मतलब मेरे हिसाब से you need to first get over that fear of failure, because if you have the fear of failure, then the probability that you will fail is very, very high. So I think especially for younger people your age, I don't think you should have a fear of failure, because अभी life बहुत बड़ी है, you don't have a lot of responsibilities, आपकी शादी नहीं हुई है, बच्चे नहीं हुए हैं, so I don't think it's bad to fail. So the only thing that I would advise is, unfortunately इंडिया में क्या हुआ है कि हमारे स्कूलिंग सिस्टम से ही हमें ये बताया गया कि फेलिंग इज नॉट गुड,
राइट?
सो आई थिंक ऑब्वियसली द फिलोसॉफिकल आंसर इज दैट fundamental change needs to happen at the schooling level, but as individual my only advice is that you have to understand that failing is good, failing is where you learn your maximum, and especially for younger people, because you don't have responsibilities of family, responsibilities of kids, this is the best time and the best era to fail. There's so much information available, आप fail करके बहुत जल्दी move on करके कुछ और start कर सकते हैं।
Now talk to us about the moments of doubts. Were there any, and उनको overcome कैसे किया आपने?
So I think I did mention this before also, that leaving a job like Tribo, where I was making a lot of money and it was a comfortable job, there was always that fear कि, more honestly speaking, given the background that I come from, which has been what I call we were lower middle class, if I may call it so, growing up, तो पैसे से डर या पैसे का की चाह हमेशा बहुत हाई रही थी, and then the decision that I was taking कि मैं ट्रीबो की जॉब छोड़कर UClean का शुरुआत करूं, where there's no guarantee how soon I'll start making money, so there was this very big fear, and the only way I could overcome this fear was having a heart-to-heart conversation with my wife, where we together decided कि अभी नहीं तो कभी नहीं, and अगर आज हम नहीं करेंगे तो 2 साल बाद कोई और करेगा, and if he makes it big, we will be the people repenting the most. So I think that repentance or that fear that somebody will do it,
right,
and somebody will make it super big, that fear was bigger than the fear of not doing a startup. And I think that was the simple answer why ultimately I decided to start UClean.
So what can the viewers learn from this experience?
So I think few things. One is for someone who was at my age and my stage when I was starting UClean, it is very important to have the support of your spouse. So if you're married, then it is very important that your husband or your wife, they also buy in your decision. It is very, very important. कैसे convince करेंगे, that is up to you. But if you are at my age, my stage, it is very important that the most important person in your life at that point in time, which is your spouse, should also agree with your decision. But if you're doing it much earlier, like I did with my first startup, then I think there's no better time. You are in your early 20s,
right,
you don't have responsibilities, or you have minimal responsibilities, you're not married, you don't have kids. I think there cannot be a better time than that. But the only recommendation that I would have is, if you are doing it, be all in. Don't do it just for the sake of calling yourself a founder on LinkedIn or startup, which is something that is happening very commonly these days. So avoid that temptation, because initially वो glamorous होता है, बहुत अच्छा लगता है, लेकिन once that momentum dies down and you start realizing that you're not making money, then it starts hitting you very hard. So if you have to start up, make sure that you're all in and you will give it your best, and that you're not doing it just for social media validation.
80% of you watching my videos are still not subscribed. If you're still watching, hit that button. Helps me bring on bigger guests and bring you ton of value. Thanks. So what did it cost you to start UClean and how did you fund it initially?
When I was starting UClean, prior to that I was working with Trebo Hotels. I was more than handsomely paid and I had made good bit of money, not a lot of money. But when we started UClean, we also knew that it is impossible to predict when this business will start making money for us.
Correct.
So we did not know if I'll start taking out money from the company in 6 months, 12 months, 1 year, 2 year. So that's why I took a conscious decision that whatever I earned in Trebo or before that would continue to remain in the bank for the rainy day, and I would figure out a way to raise funds. Now, when we started UClean, the bigger challenge was that we were not just creating a laundry business, we were creating a new segment in India altogether, which is laundromats. So laundromats did not exist till then. It was all local dhobis, which meant that people were also not willing to take a bet on the business. So I reached out to about 40, 50 HNIs and UHNIs. And while everybody thought that the idea is exciting, idea is interesting, but nobody wanted to be that guinea pig. So what I did is, after about a couple of months, when I was not able to raise any funds, I started reaching out to existing local dry cleaners in Delhi NCR with one single proposition that Indians are moving away from ethnic garments, from heavy embellished garments to casual wear. And that is why the market of dry cleaning is shrinking and it is rapidly being taken up by the laundry industry. Now, when I tried to explain this to dry cleaners, obviously a lot of them are offended. A lot of them thought that why this guy from IIT is trying to tell us our business. But after about 40-50 rejections, I finally came across a dry cleaner who had multiple outlets in Delhi NCR. What he agreed to was that he would be happy to convert 2 existing outlets of his into UClean, make all the investment required in that conversion in terms of equipment, in terms of branding, in terms of setup of the store, but he would not run the store. So we would be operating it and we would be giving him a minimum guaranteed return every month. So it was almost like a debt. So he would give us, he would help us set up the entire business and we would return the business in the form of debt. And obviously, marta kya na karta, that was the only option that we had, and that's how we started, and that's how we were able to capitalize the first couple of stores.
There's a lot of young people who have the idea, but they lack the capital. So what's your advice to them?
So I have a very straightforward philosophy in life, which I call the 3F formula. The first F is family. If you have an idea, you are convinced about your idea, then reach out to your family for funding. Try to convince them and hope that you can emotionally sway them and somehow get money out of your parents. Could be your father, could be your brother, could be someone who can lend that kind of amount to you. And best part kya hai ki once you are taking it from your family, that investor dagger is not there over your head. आपको पता है कि worst case में क्या होगा, पैसे जल जाएंगे, आपको डांट पड़ जाएगी, आपको business quit करना पड़ेगा. So that is the easiest one. If that doesn't work, then the second F is friends. Obviously, some of your friends really trust you, you are on good note with them, some of them might be able to lend money to you. तो आप उनको target करो. If that also doesn't work out, then the third F is called fools. अब इंडिया में क्या आज के डेट पे कि a lot of people want to be called investors. Lot of people want to write on their LinkedIn and Facebook that I am an investor, I have invested in 20 companies and they have given me an exit. So India में good thing today is that there is a massive amount of individual investment that is available and there's a massive FOMO. हर बंदे को अपने आप को इन्वेस्टर मानना है. मैं LinkedIn पे लिखना चाहता हूँ कि मैंने 4 स्टार्टअप्स में इन्वेस्ट किया. So I call them fools. And I call them fools because they also know that out of 100 bets they make, 99 will fail. But if they're able to discover one good bet, then obviously they're able to recoup their investment. But there is enough money in the market, enough investors that are suffering from that proverbial FOMO, and it's not difficult to reach out to them.
Arunabh's biggest learning came from his biggest mistake. Stay tuned. Okay, now let's start the Ask the Founder segment. Thank you for sending your questions. Arunabh at Ram Parikh wants to ask, what pushes you to achieve your big goal? Because if someone gets comfortable, they will not push themselves to go higher.
So I think for me personally, it is that ambition. So wherever UClean right now is, I still feel that we are only 10% where we should ideally be. And increasing that percentage incrementally every day is something that gets me to wake up every day in the morning fresh and ready to take on the world.
Ashitij Singh wants to ask, if you're not from IIT, would things have been different?
See, the ideal answer would be that it doesn't matter, but honest answer is not that. I do feel that network matters a lot. I have seen it in my first startup, I'm seeing it here, that generally, especially I've seen with IIT and IIMs, that the alumni camaraderie, the alumni bonding is very strong. So while it might not have helped me in terms of growing the brand or raising the funds, but I've openly reached out to IIT Network, shamelessly reached out to IIT Network whenever I'm stuck, whenever I need a favor, and in more cases than not, they oblige. And the good thing about IIT Network is that it's actually very well networked. So world की कोई भी company हो, world की कोई भी government हो, कोई बड़ा बंदा हो जिससे आपको connect होना हो, IIT does have the power to open doors.
Correct. At IMSG wants to ask कि आपने इस industry को क्यों choose किया?
दो reason थे. One, this industry is extremely large. Today it's at a $50 billion in size, which is bigger than the Indian restaurant industry, Indian salon industry, Indian preschool industry, Indian fitness industry, all put together. Unse bada hai. Second, despite being such a large industry, even today it is 95% unorganized. Itni badi or itni unorganized industry, there's no parallel, and hence there's a big opportunity to create a disruption.
At this is Aman01 says, let's say a student from Bihar wants to do a startup. Is there a way GEC can help in doing that?
Okay, so I think I am not best qualified to answer on behalf of GEC, Government Engineering College, but whether they can help a student who is not from GEC startup, but I can say for sure that GEC on its own, and there are multiple GECs in Bihar, they are working very hard to foster the culture of startup and entrepreneurship in their students. Whether they'll do it for a non-student is something I'm not qualified to answer.
Correct. इन्हीं का एक और सवाल है कि given your metallurgy background, आपने startup world में कैसे transition किया?
Yeah, तो जब मैं IIT गया था तो my bigger motivation or biggest motivation was to crack a job in Tata Steel. And that is why जब मुझे IIT Bombay में metallurgy मिली तो I was super excited. But when I went to IIT Bombay, I started interacting with students, especially from the metro cities, and that's when I realized that I have been living like a frog in a well. Jamshedpur मेरा well था, मैं वहाँ का frog था, और Tata Steel was the maximum or the biggest aspiration that a guy from Jamshedpur could have. But IIT Bombay opened my eyes, and that's where I learned that there is life much beyond Tata Steel, life much beyond Jamshedpur, and there is something new that is coming up, which is startup. And that is when I actually, I would say about mid of IIT, about 2006 or 7, I always wanted to explore startups. So I did not necessarily want to start up, but I genuinely wanted to work for a startup.
Well guys, thanks for your questions. So what has been the biggest setback for you so far?
So obviously, एक startup बना रहे हो तो multiple challenges, multiple setbacks आएंगे. But two setbacks really stand out for me. One obviously was a universal, which is COVID. उस समय पे सारे businesses impact हुए थे.
Right.
But हमारे लिए जो biggest setback that happened was very early in our journey. We had started with our first store in Vasant Kunj on January 17, 2017. And on February 8, 2017, so around 21 दिन बाद, I was at home, it was around 12 in the night, and I got a call from a Domino's Pizza, which was right next to our store, saying that आपका store जल गया.
Okay.
And we rushed over there. By the time we reached there, the entire store was reduced to ashes. 3 machines थी, सारी जल गई, steam iron table जल गया. And it was because of one stupidity of mine. We had a problem of rats in that particular store.
Okay.
So what we used to do was, before leaving for the day, whatever clean and unclean clothes were there inside the store, we would pack them inside the washer and the dryer because they don't have any gaps. एंड देन अगले दिन आके उनको निकालते थे हम। तो उस दिन भी ऐसा ही हुआ, वी हैड जस्ट क्रैक्ड अ स्पा इन वसंत कुंज मॉल एंड वहां से बहुत सारे टॉवल्स आए थे स्पा के। सो वी थॉट कि अब टाइम लेट हो गया, इसको कल धोएंगे, सो वी पुट ऑल द टॉवल्स इनसाइड द ड्रायर। नाउ स्पा के जो टॉवल्स होते हैं दे ऑलवेज कैरी aromatic oils because that's how the spa process is done.
Right.
Aromatic oil is highly inflammable.
Okay.
Now the dryer inside which we stuffed the towels, they already had some heat inside. While dryer off हो चुका था लेकिन हमने उसका heat को dissipate नहीं किया था.
Okay.
So we just stuffed the towels inside and we left for the day.
Yeah.
Over a period of time, because of the heat and the aromatic oil, that entire towel started burning and that absolutely burned the entire store to ashes. So I would say my biggest learning there was not hiring people from the industry. तो मुझे लगा एज एन IITian मैं सब कुछ सीख लूंगा, ऑनलाइन डेटा है, ऑफलाइन में पढ़ लूंगा, ट्रेनिंग ले लूंगा एंड आई विल बी एबल टू रन द शो ऑन माय ओन. बट दैट वाज द बिगेस्ट मिस्टेक दैट आई कुड हैव कमिटेड बिकॉज ऑनेस्टली स्पीकिंग वो जो ब्लंडर था, it was the first time for me. But anybody who has been in the laundry industry or dry cleaning industry understands that this is simple physics, simple chemistry, and he would have never done this mistake.
Correct. So what are the biggest objections you've gotten so far?
At multiple levels. So obviously, I am from Bihar.
Right.
मैंने IIT किया and मेरे घर पे सबको उम्मीद थी कि इसके बाद IAS करेगा, लाल बत्ती वाली गाड़ी में घूमेंगे. लेकिन I never had that dream, so I shattered that dream of my mom. उसके बाद फिर jobs करी. Trebo I was making very good money, and then suddenly one day I had this epiphany that I should drop out of Trebo and I should start UClean on my own. Now that was a shocker for my parents in two ways. One, obviously Trebo was a very handsomely paying job.
Right.
I had just gotten married, and on top of that, dhobi ka business. Dhobi traditionally has been a lower caste in India.
Correct.
बिहार में भी काफी lower caste माना जाता है. तो they were shell shocked कि how will we let our society, let our families, relatives know that he dropped out of a prestigious place like Trebo Hotels where he was making a lot of money and he wants to become a dhobi. So honestly, I will not say that I came up with a fantastic logic or rationale to convince them. All I did was I had a conversation with my wife and she was already working at a senior position with HCL and she was on the same page as me. So she said that if we don't do it now, somebody else will do it 2 years down the line, and then we will be those people who come on Facebook and write that I also thought of this idea in 2016. So she said that I am making enough, I can run the family at least for the next 2-3 years. You give it a shot. We don't have a kid right now, and that's how we both convinced each other.
Right.
And honestly speaking, didn't really overcome the objections that my parents had,
Right.
and we started UClean. Second has been obviously because we are trying to disrupt an industry that is even today 95% unorganized, controlled by the local dhobi, the blue collared, and in a lot of places we started facing this challenge कि जहाँ पर न्यू आउटलेट खोलते थे वहाँ पर धोबी आके धरना देने लगते थे that you are going to take away our business, कोई पत्थर मार रहा है, कोई आंदोलन कर रहा है. Lot of these things happened a lot initially. So what we did was we did a change of strategy. We did a partnership with this informal organization called Akhil Bharatiya Dhobi Mahasamaj, which is like the biggest informal congregation of the Dhobi community, which runs on WhatsApp.
Okay.
And what we did was we said that whenever we launch a new store, we will hire from the community. So as soon as we launched a new store, we would send out a creative on these Dhobi WhatsApp group,
Right.
saying that UClean is now live in say Sector 7 Chandigarh. तो आपको जुड़ना है. This is the salary we are offering. These are the perks that we are offering.
Right.
And then these WhatsApp group leaders, admins, they would send these messages to the various धोबी WhatsApp group and we would end up hiring from them.
Okay.
अब एक बार आप community से hire कर रहे हो तो obviously बाकी community वाले उसका विरोध नहीं कर सकते हैं. So that was a hack, fortunately, which we very quickly figured out.
Correct. When you first started out, what were the first steps you took to create brand awareness, get initial customers?
So what we did was because, like I said, कि we took a loan of sorts from a local dry cleaner.
Right.
तो हमने क्या किया, हमने strategically उनके 2 ऐसे stores select किए, which were bang opposite the mother dairy.
Okay.
अब mother dairy में क्या होता है कि in the morning and the evening there's a lot of footfalls. So लोग वहाँ पर आते थे and suddenly they would see कि यार ये सामने में क्या आया है. And what we did was we consciously created a glass structure ताकि पूरा बहुत बड़ा सा ग्लास डोर था, आप उसके राइट थ्रू मशीन देख सकते थे. And our machine are not the typical machine. So you have a washer and you have a dryer on top of the washer. So suddenly when somebody sees through the glass, he would see that एक 6.5 feet की machine रखी हुई है. And that created a curiosity. क्योंकि लोगों को washing machine 2-2.5 feet की देखने की आदत है. Suddenly एक 6.5 feet की machine दिखती है. So they would come inside just to inquire what exactly is this. And then they would touch, they would feel, and then they would say, चलो यार एक order करके देख. So that is the strategy we actually used to acquire our first few customers.
So how much do you spend on marketing, and how is it specifically, like Google ads, Facebook ads? What do you spend on?
So if you look at UClean, we are primarily what you would call a B2B2B and a B2B2C company.
Okay.
The reason being that we are not the final service providers. We are a franchising company. So what we do is we partner with micro entrepreneurs in different neighborhoods of India. We give them the franchise of UClean.
Okay.
We enable them, we empower them, and then they service the customers.
Okay.
So when we talk about marketing, it happens at two different levels.
Right.
One is where I need to attract micro entrepreneurs to start their own UClean business.
Correct.
And the second is when somebody has started a UClean, generate customers for him. So for both, what we have realized is, especially in the laundry business, the most powerful channel is Facebook. So majority, I would say almost 50-60% of our spend is on Facebook.
Okay.
Google would be about another 20%, 10% would be Instagram, 10% would be YouTube and affiliated channels.
Also, do you do physical marketing?
So we do, but how it happens is that each franchisee individually is responsible for executing local level marketing or hyper local marketing at their level.
Right.
So we handhold them, we guide them, we provide them with ideas, designs and creatives, but the execution is the responsibility of the franchise partner.
Correct. Have you raised any funds so far?
Initially we did purely out of peer pressure because I come from a batch where a lot of other of my peers from IIT Bombay, they have started up, they have raised a lot of funds. So शुरुआत में, like I said, कि India में massive FOMO है. So I came across angel investors who wanted to give money without any proof of concept. And because my friends, my peers from IIT Bombay, they were raising funds, they were announcing on social media, paisa utha liya. So I also raised some bit of funding, around 4 crore upfront on day zero, just for the sake of announcing. But honestly, as we started growing, as we started maturing, that is the right word, I was immature then, I realized that you don't want the sword of that investor hanging over your head, especially when your business doesn't need money. So we have never really raised funds after that. We have been self-capitalized because of the franchise model that we have built, and we have been PAT positive as a company all through except for the COVID year. So honestly speaking, a cash flow positive, PAT positive company, and we never really felt the need to raise funds.
Right. So are there any disadvantages to having any investors?
Yeah, disadvantage बिल्कुल है, in the sense that, and in fact I should have added this before, कि इंडिया में FOMO तो बहुत है, लेकिन अलग अलग टाइप के इन्वेस्टर्स भी हैं. There are some investors who will be so impatient कि वो 2 महीने में 3 महीने में आपके घर पे आने लग जाएंगे. These are the kind of investors you will always want to avoid. So I think the biggest drawback of having an investor is when an investor tries to run the company. And trust me, this happens quite often. Right now that is what Byju's is going through, but that's a different story. So I think you have to be very careful. It is not just about the money, it is also about the people that you are going to raise money from. So be very careful, figure out whether this is one person that you can potentially talk to every day for the next 5 years, and if the answer is no, then he might not be the right person for you.
So now for the final segment, Arunabh, what is the best and most rewarding part of being an entrepreneur?
I think, and this might sound cliched, but I think it's the impact that you create. So today, if I talk about UClean, we employ close to 3,000 people at different stores of UClean. And these 3,000 people are generally what you call the bottom of the pyramid.
Right.
बिल्कुल गरीब तबके से होते हैं, बिहार, झारखंड, उड़ीसा, वेस्ट बंगाल, जो इंडिया के ईस्टर्न स्टेट्स हैं, वहाँ के लोग जनरली इस इंडस्ट्री में काम करते हैं. एंड they work super hard for something as low as 15,000 to 20,000 rupees per month. ऐसे लोगों की families को जब आप रोजगार दे रहे हो, probably you are the reason they're able to put food on the table. Then I don't think there's anything more powerful, anything more impactful than this.
What is the one book you have read which has impacted your life as a founder and you suggest the audience to read that book?
Oh, Lean Startup. So I think in today's world, जहाँ पे बहुत funding होती है, over hiring होती है, over firing होती है, this is one book that will restore your sanity. Lean Startup talks about how you can actually build something very impactful, something very big without over investing. So Lean is the buzzword. उन्होंने उसमें बात करी है how you can keep your costs low, how you can avoid over hiring, and how you can try to generate maximum returns with minimal possible investment. So I think if you really want to build a company as a sane founder, as a smart founder, this is one book that you should absolutely read.
One piece of advice you will leave with a wonderful audience.
Again, repeating, but I genuinely believe this has to be repeated. Please don't start up for the sake of calling yourself a founder on LinkedIn or Facebook. As youngsters, it is very easy to get tempted, get influenced, and produce 5 different reels calling yourself a founder on Instagram. But over a period of time, once the novelty wears off, you will realize that the journey is much more tougher. The glamour will be gone, and you will be left to fend for yourself. So if you are starting up, make sure you're all in, and make sure you're doing it for the long run.
All right, Arunabh, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
That's a wrap, and hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, make sure to hit the like button, and also you can check out episode 96 with Shivam Gupta, who is making 6 to 7 lakhs a month as a 23-year-old agency owner. That's it. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.